So, after all this, we're finally ready to get started. So, first of all, from me, as the president of the society, thank you very much for coming today. I'm sorry about the confusion. Mr. Άδωνη is very popular, so the event was extremely overbooked. Everyone wanted to come, and that's what happens. And for security reasons, we can't let more people into the room, and that wouldn't be good for any of us. So yeah, just to give you an idea of how this will work today, this is the first speech of our speaker series. First, Mr. Sofianos will speak, who's an alumnus from our great university and also a businessman. And he will also introduce Mr. Gеωργιάδη, whom I think we also all know and love. And and then there will be some Q&A, and Director Mr. Vasiliou, who's also chairing the event, and thank you very much for that. So yes, without further ado, help me please warmly welcome our guest who flew all the way from Greece just to speak to us here tonight.
In English, huh? Dear friends, dear fellow alumni to be, let me introduce myself in 30 seconds. My name is Nikos Sofianos. I'm an entrepreneur in a communist country named Greece. I am honored to represent businesses as the Secretary General of the Athens Chamber of Commerce and Industry. I am the current president of the Hellenic Alumni Association of the LSE. Together with me is Maria Christakis, the former president of our association. And I'm very honored to be here with you today. I would like to start my very short speech mentioning democracy as the least bad political system. We have experienced in democracy several negative accidents. I would like to mention Winston Churchill, that he was not elected after winning the war. I would like to mention Brexit. As a non-British, I believe that this was a very negative result of democracy. And I would like to come to the current Greek government, which is a very bad accident in the political history of Greece. As an entrepreneur in Greece, I experience every day and every month more and more taxes, and I'm obliged today to give around 70% of my income to the state without taking back actually anything. As a citizen, I experience a government that wants to control mass media, does not support reforms at all, and tries to control everything against the will of people. So the question that I would like to raise is, what is the way forward for Greece? For me, the way forward is an open economy, privatizations, the philosophy of entrepreneurship to prevail, and also reforms. We need to reform the state to a big degree. We need to evaluate the civil servants. We need a smaller and more effective state. So my next question is, who will undertake this job? What kind of politicians do we need? So in my opinion, we need someone who is a survivor by character. I know a guy who started working at the age of 19 years old because life obliged him to do so. He has to be a fighter. I know a friend who has very strong beliefs and he has passion in supporting them. He has to be efficient. As a Minister of Maritime, he finished the cabotage situation, which was very embarrassing for a European country. As a Minister of Health, he did many things, and he reduced dramatically the pharmaceuticals expenses. This politician has to be reliable. when he tells you, I'll call you next year at 3 o'clock and 17 minutes, he has to do that. He has to be a doer. He has to be hardworking and has to bring concrete results. He has to be supportive to his collaborators, and I'm very grateful to him that in my beginning of my political career, because I have decided to get involved in politics in the next parliamentary elections, he supports me very much. So we need a guy to do the business, who is a survivor, a fighter, efficient, reliable, a doer, and supportive. Ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, let me introduce to you this guy. His name is Άδωνις Γεωργιάδης. Thank you.
Before I express many thanks to all of you being here, I will say to Nikos that from my personal example, from my current trip to London, I will tell you the good of democracy. See how things changes. I was here in London in the Imperial College 3 years ago. I was here as the Minister of Health of Samaras government. I almost couldn't enter the room because a lot of leftist students and other kind of people were shouting against the memorandum, against the agreement with the Troika, against the government of the Γερμανοτσολιάδες. I don't know how to say it in English.
German scapegoat.
Okay. And here I am, 3 years later. The room is full. These people are not here. And the social temperature has going down in Greece. This is the good of democracy. And this is why we love democracy. Because we have to find a way to understand each other and make each other prove who is right or wrong. And as Winston Churchill said, democracy is the worst of all the ways to control a country, but we haven't found any better until now. I'm here to tell you from my point of view, because I had the privilege and the opportunity all these 7 years of the so-called memorandum years of our country to be at the center of at the event horizon. In the first program, during Papandreou government, I was the main speaker of my ex-party, Laos Party, and I was speaking in favor of the program. In the second program, during Samaras government, I was the main speaker of New Democracy, defending the program. At the middle between the two programs, because I wanted to vote for the PSI, I was rejected from my old party, and I resigned from the ministry and from the parliament in order to be able to vote for the PSI and not having any political accusations that I did it for personal ambition. And in the third program, during Tsipras and Kamenos government, I was one of the MPs of New Democracy, the 66 MPs of New Democracy that voted for the program in order to stay in the Eurozone. So, yes, I have an opinion about what has happened this year in this country, and I think it's very important, not only for the Greeks, but for everybody. You are here, you have the privilege to study in such a fantastic school about economy. I envy you for that. And it's very important to understand what has happened to Greece. I was reading a book of Neil Ferguson as I was coming to London, and he was explaining why history is so important. History is really important, not because we learn about the past, but because if we understand why things happened as they happened in the past, we could predict what would happen in the future. So the example of Greece, and be careful, not the example why we were bankrupt. This is the easy part. It's very easy to understand why Greece bankrupt on 2010. I will finish it in a sentence. Because since 1981, we changed the way we lived. We started spending as a society much more than we were gaining. We thought that the state should give money to everybody. We thought that it was a good idea not to follow the rules and eating other people's money. But as Margaret Thatcher was saying, the bad with socialism is that there is a time that other people's money ends. And the time for our country was 2010. The other people didn't want to lend us any more their money. So we had to take a decision as a society. Would we try to solve our problems and change our country in order to take the place we could and we needed in the future? Or we would just let our country let down in a chaos? That was the big discussion at 6 May of 2010. So this was the easy part. What is the more difficult part? Why Greece, after 7 years, is still in the program? You see, in the program, after Greece, Ireland entered, Portugal entered, Cyprus entered. Spain were close, it avoided at the end. Italy, let's hope they will avoid it. Let's hope, because this will hurt. So, why all the other countries manage to exit the program, to exit to the markets, to fix their economies, and we, 7 years after, will still discuss about the Troika negotiations, about the new austerity measures, about the reforms that we have to do, about if we will be able next July to exit in the markets, or we will need a fourth program? Why we are the only country that have stopped in the crisis? This for me is a very interesting question, and this is what I came to explain you as I can and talk a little bit for the future. When our old life finished, our society reacted as a bad child of a family that was giving him everything. Our society couldn't believe that we were just bankrupt, as so many has been bankrupt in the past before us. And our society first decided that we have money, we sure have money somewhere, and the bad politicians of our country hide this money because for various reasons. The first reason was, if you remember, it was Kamenos area. George Papandreou was the broker of the Rothschild family with the CDS. Do you remember all these stories? You laugh now. But during 2010 and 2011, hundreds of thousands of Greeks believed that George Papandreou bankrupted the country because he wanted to gain money from the CDS for the Rothschild family. Because that's what Kamenos was saying. And the people thought it was much easier to believe that a conspiracy was at the game than the reality that we didn't have any money. Because for years we had stopped producing any money. We were just spending money. This first period of 2010, unfortunately, was very crucial. Why? Because our society in the beginning divided between the people that they were for the program and against the program. This was okay, normal. Of course, some people would be for the program and some people would be against the program. But in Greece got a so wrong temperature. It was not just a dispute between two roads. It was a fight between the people that really loved their country, the people that they were against the program, and the people that they were traitors, the people that they were getting money from Schäuble and Merkel in order to sell Acropolis or the oil of the Aegean or the gold of Chalkidiki. Don't laugh, it's very serious. That's what has happened. And for almost a year, until the end of 2011, I have no doubt about it, the total majority of the country, it was not just against the program, didn't believe at all that we had any responsibility for the bankruptcy and that we needed any reform. Did the politicians do their job as they should at that point? No. Because our political system was so shocked as our society was. You see, we had built a political system that it was made to handle easy things. Someone would come to my office, he would ask me to find a job in the public sector, I would make a call, I would find him a position, or he would ask me to make some small favors. Rusfeti is the name in the Greek language. This is what our politicians were made of. And suddenly, they had to learn about surplus, they had to learn about reforms, they had to take decisions and stand up against society and take tough decisions, unpopular decisions, because have no doubt about it, if someone of you, just like Nikos now, want to enter in politics, it's a tough job. If you want really to do good to your country, you will have to face the people and many times say unpopular things because the majority don't want to change their life. When we say about reforms, such a good word, you know what reforms means in the public opinion? Reform everybody else except me. This is how the people accept the word reform. So when you have to stand with dignity, but you have to stand with power, and you have to stand with belief of your ideas. This didn't happen in Greece. Papandreou's government did, I think, the most crucial mistake of all. They hid themselves behind the Troika. Suddenly, all the things were bad from the program. Nobody was defending the program. The program was bad, but what can we do? We don't have money to pay the pensions. We don't have the money to pay the salary. So we have to follow these bad things that these bad people are telling us to do just because we don't have money. So no one was really explaining to the people why we had to reform our country. At that period, as you remember, New Democracy had voted no for the program. The truth is, Samaras, who has been accused about this decision, he never said that Papandreou is a traitor, and he never said that he wouldn't follow the program. He just said that the program as it was written during Papandreou's government, it cannot be done. It was not doneable. And the truth is, he was right on that criticism, because as you've seen, when he became Prime Minister on July 2012, many things from the program changed. The rates, the timeline, some of the reforms. But since New Democracy said no in the beginning, many people felt free to fight the program as hard as they could. And the second myth that came in our country was the Russians will give us money, the Chinese will give us money for free. For free. The Russians would give us the money because Putin, as an Orthodox, loved Greece, and he wanted to spend 200 billion just to see the Greeks be happy with more pension. Don't laugh. People voted for that. You cannot really imagine how many bullshit these people believed during this period. Before 2 weeks, I was on a radio station with one guy from Syriza, Mr. Zachariadis. Mr. Zachariadis is a very brave man, and I don't want to laugh. He's one of the few from Syriza that still come with me in an interview. I have to thank him. I have to thank him for that. So Mr. Zachariadis asked me, where will you find the money about the things Mr. Mitsotakis says about the tax relief and all these things? I want to learn, Mr. Zachariadis said, exactly the code from the budget that you can find this money? So I answered him, we will write in our budget the money we want to take back from the Germans from the Second World War, and we will exit to the markets. Suddenly, Mr. Zachariadis and Mr. Stravelakis, who was the journalist, started to laugh. But this was written in the program of Anel, who is in the government, during 2015 elections. And the people voted, and these parties in the government coalition, that we could write in our budget, state budget, the money that we claim from the Germans from the Second World War, and this would be enough for us to exit to the markets. Now they laugh. But 2 years ago, when they stopped Samaras' government, a little bit before we would exit the markets, they believed in all these things. So what happened to our society? Our society divided. Fanatism was in a way that we couldn't believe. I have to share with you the most difficult day in my life in the parliament. I'm now 10 years in the parliament as an MP. The most difficult day was the night we were voting for the PSI. It was a terrible night. I was a minister at that time of maritime affairs. I couldn't reach the parliament because more than 100,000 people were around. It was the time of the Aganaktismeni, the protesters. They were looking the cars, and if they thought that the car was a luxurious car, so it could be a car of an MP, they were throwing stones and eggs and bottles of water and anything on the cars in order to prevent them go to parliament. The police said to me to go from the National Garden in order not to be seen as a thief in the parliament that I was elected to represent the people. And many of my colleagues did the same thing. We entered the parliament, and the time we were voting for the PSI, which was the biggest debt relief that a country has had in the Western history, the time we were voting for that, around the parliament everything was on flames. In the parliament you could smell the flame, and I had called my wife and I had said to her that if they tried to enter to the parliament, the police couldn't stop them, so I would go to hide somewhere in the parliament, maybe if I could survive. And this was happening in a night that we were raising 140 billion euro from our debt. And the people couldn't understand. The people that was burning Athens at that night now ask the government, because they're the same people. They're the same people. Many people now say, why there are not protesters anymore in Athens? Because Tsipras has put them in the public sector and they're taking salary. This is the answer. These people that were burning Athens at that night, in their budget now, 2017, they have written in the page 52 that if we didn't have PSI, Greece would be bankrupt and we wouldn't have money to pay the salaries. When we were doing that, we were afraid about our lives. Why? Because all the kind of the conspiracy theories you can think, they were there. I was really amazed and a little bit disappointed for the Greek people when a little bit before the general elections of January 2015, in which I will come and explain some things after, in a poll there was a question: do you think that if we blackmail the European Union by exiting the euro, the Europeans will give us money for free and they will backtrack from the memorandum? And the 68% of the people said yes. They thought in the real world that Greece could blackmail the European Union by committing a suicide. After this period of PSI, which was a terrible period, as you remember, we had this double election. Samaras and Venizelos government was established. I'm very proud I was a member of that government. The truth is, during these 2.5 years, Greece made a tremendous step forward. And if what we say as politicians doesn't really count, because you could say that, okay, you are an MP of New Democracy, you are Vice President of New Democracy, you were a Minister of Samaras, you will say good things about Samaras. But the markets, since we're in the LSE, the markets said we had made a tremendous progress. In May 2014, Greece exited in the market for the first time with less than 5% interest. Many people seems to forget that, because what we're discussing now is if Mr. Tsipras, after 3 years, will be able to close the review, will be able, with the help of Mrs. Merkel, Madame Merkel at the past, to enter to the QE, and if all this happens, maybe Mr. Tsipras will be able to exit in the markets until the end of 2017, maybe with 5%. So after 3 years, and after we have voted all these measures, we hope that if everything goes good, we will be exactly where we were on May 14. This is the time Greece lost because of Syriza and all the populism that conquered our country during the recent years. Did we do everything well? No. My ambition was to go even faster in the reforms. Because as I was saying to you before, the reforms is not something that we have to do it because of the Troika. I'm very much disgraced when I think, or when I let these people think, that I have to let Mr. Thompson come to my office as Minister of Health and explain to me why I have to make reforms in the health sector. As if I'm stupid and I cannot understand why it's good for my people not to spend taxpayers' money to thieves. So I tried in my ministry to make the reforms as fast as possible, and I've seen that it works. If you go fast, then the program works. When I exit the ministry 1 year after, I had finished not only the 2 reviews for my period, but the 2 reviews after. Why? Mr. Thompson asked me in my second review, why you go so fast? You are 2 reviews in front. And I said to him, because I want you to leave my country. And the only way to see you leave my country is not having anymore the need of your money. And the only way to not have the need of your money is to exit the markets. And the only way to exit the markets is to finish the reforms. So I want to finish them today. You want to stay 2, 3, 4 more years because it's good for you to feel yourself as the ruler of Greece. But I want my country again back. That's why I want to make the reforms fast. But it was very difficult. And I understand why Samaras government in some cases had to stop. Because whenever Samaras tried to do one good thing, he had to respond to accusations about how slave of Mrs. Merkel he was. And see what happened. When Samaras signed the Hellenikon project, or the Fraport Airport project, or the Desfa project, thousands of protesters were in the street and blackmailing the government that when we come in the government we'll put you in jail because you give these things to the Troika. It was the period that Mr. Kamenos had another idea. That when they were in the government, the Americans would give us money for free because they would like to take the gas that has been found in the GNC. I don't know if you remember this story. Do you remember where Kamenos went for the first time as minister in Washington? And he said publicly, come and take the gas. We love you. We'll give you Carpathos as an island to put your soldiers on. And nobody answered. Nobody really cared about all these stories in Washington, D.C. But Kamenos really believed it. I have to be honest on that. One time when I was in the Ministry of Health, I said, I will not let Mr. Thompson to take the glory about the reform. You cannot believe what things I have heard about this phrase all these 4 years. What I was meaning was, what I meant was, I will not hide myself from behind the Troika. I do the reforms as the minister because I believe in the reforms. This spirit didn't came in our country, but now. I really do believe that if Mr. Tsipras leaves the government fast and before he made a damage that is irreversible, at the end, the election of 2015, okay, it cost us approximately 100 billion, but at the end, it will be for good. Why? See the long term, see the big image. Before Mr. Tsipras came to power, the left ideas in our country had all the authority. If you were someone that had came from the communist youth, you could say almost whatever you wanted. If I knew, I have to be very honest, when I entered the University of Athens, I went to DAP. I see some people from ONANED here, and I thank them for being here. I went to DAP. Big mistake. I should go to DAP 6 months later. I should go for the first 6 months to CNE. If I had done that, nobody would ever have disputed me. They would have never burned my bookshops. They would have never accused me as a fascist. They would never accused me as a traitor. Because the leftist ideas were so strong in our country. Greece, have no doubt about it, was the last communist country of the Europe. The last. Even now, we're in a middle phase. We're not in the Western world exactly yet. Why? Because all the people thought that if the left people say something, this is good. Because these people from the left are the good people, are the people that fight for ideas and not for chair, not for power, not for money. What has Mr. Tsipras really given us? He destroyed this myth. This myth was keeping Greece in the past. And Mr. Tsipras killed this myth. After Mr. Tsipras, nobody in Greece would stand up and say, I'm from the left. They will be ashamed. They will be ashamed for all the lies. They will be ashamed for all the corruption, Kalogritzas and all the other. They will be ashamed about the bad characters, Polakis. They will be ashamed about what they did. And this is good for Greece. Why? There is a proverb many Greeks says that God loves Greece. I don't know if it's true. We have made so many mistakes that maybe even God is furious with us. But in this point, it seems that really God loves Greece, because exactly at the same time that Tsipras has killed the myth of the left parties, in New Democracy, we elected a president that he is so liberal and so determined to make the reforms. You should remember Kyriakos Mitsotakis during Samaras government, and this is the main reason I support him so strongly, was the minister that really wanted to do the reforms in a brave way and never hide himself behind the Troika. Never did the crucial mistake to say, we make the reforms for Merkel or for Schäuble. He always defended that we have to change our country and make our country a real European country. So if this guy becomes prime minister at a time that the leftist ideas has been defeated in a scale that only Tsipras could give us, I think we will have the chance to really transform Greece really fast. And when I said today in the CNBC, I had an interview and in the Sky News, buy Greece because it's cheap now, I really believe. If I had money, unfortunately I haven't, but if I had, I would buy Greece now. You see, Tsipras wants to stay in power. He loves being a prime minister. I have never seen anybody in the past love so much being a prime minister. I really believe when he will lose the chair, he will face tremendous personal problems. No, really, really. He loves the chair. He loves to see himself in the mirror as the prime minister. So this is good for Greece now. Because of that, he will close the review. And he will accept whatever the lenders ask him to do, just to stay in the office. This is not very good for the negotiation, to be honest, because the lenders are not the good people of the story. The lenders are people that they have their own interest. They want to take their money back, and they want to be secured about that. So when they understand that the prime minister is ready to sign everything just to stay in the office, they will ask from him everything, and they will take from him everything. This is the truth. And this is the reason I personally say, and I wish he would leave today, because I'm totally sure that the measures and the review and the deal he will do, it will be a terrible deal. But a terrible deal is much better than no deal. No deal would mean that Greece would have to be bankrupt on July and exit the Eurozone. I know that in this country, in Great Britain, these ideas about exiting Greece, the Eurozone, was very popular for a period of time. I remember some politicians, as Mr. Farage, he was going in the European Parliament. I could never believe that Mr. Farage could harm Great Britain so much. I said, Nick, because of the Brexit referendum. I have to be very honest. I'm very sad about the Brexit. I was one of the European civilians that I was very sad when that morning the Brexit had prevailed. But this is their country, and they have their own liberty to decide what they want to do. For us in Greece, Grexit is not a choice. Grexit would be a disaster. Many people think that if we had drachma, we wouldn't have problems. This is so wrong. The problems of our economy was not a matter of currency. The problem of our economy was a matter of structure. We stopped producing things. We were not competitive anymore, and we wanted the easy money. Easy money is gone. Now we have to find a way to work harder, to find new ideas. We can find these new ideas. We are bright people. We can do it. We have done it in the past many times. We will do it again. And then Europe is the natural space of Greece. This is where we stand. This is where we stand since our history began. This is where we will be now and in the future. And we will fight that. We will fight for that as strong as we can. And we will do it. In this effort, Mr. Tsipras and his love for the chair is an ally. Because I have no doubt about it. Mr. Tsipras was so talented in populism that he could change the story and damage Greece again very fast. He's so good in telling lies and so persuasive to the people that he could do it. But he will not. So have no worries. I'm totally confident he will go forward. And even as I heard last night, they had a small episode in the negotiations, but as it seems, Mr. Tsakalotos goes back, and Mr. Tsipras and Mr. Liakos and the other Germanotsoliades of the present are taking the negotiation forward. So, why we had stopped? Because we didn't believe the reforms, because our society was divided, and because populism prevailed. It was not the problem of the program. It was the program of us. We could have exited even on March 2015 if Samaras still had been prime minister for sure, and if we had a better opposition during 2012-2014, maybe even faster. We could do it. Our economy could do it. But all this social temperature, all these protesters, and all this social climate didn't let us do the job as fast as we could and we should, and this is the only reason we're still stuck. And in order to persuade you, I will give you another example. See what happened to Cyprus. Cyprus for me is a very good example. I will share with you one personal story. It was Tuesday afternoon. We were in the parliament. I was with two of my colleagues. I will not mention their names because maybe they don't want. And we were discussing for some things. And another fourth colleague, ex-minister of Papandreou and Papadimos government at that point, we were in the Samaras government, and he was just an MP. He came and said to us, "Did you learn the news? The Cypriot parliament rejected the program." For us, for me personally, if you could tell me that there would be a parliament that would reject the program and pick up the bankruptcy, than vote in favor of the program, even losing votes, had really no chance. I could believe that there would be one parliament that could take such a responsibility. So I was really surprised. And one of the three MPs asked me, very calm, he was ex-minister also, "How many days you think Adonis Day will stand?" I said, 2 days. The other guy said, "No, I think 4 days." And the other guy that had come said, "Do you think maybe the Russians would give them money?" So everybody laughed. And the one said, "Look who we make minister, who says this kind of nonsense." Even the ministers of our government hadn't been persuaded that the Russians would never give money. This is what has happened to our country. The whole society believed in fairy tales. It's amazing. It's a social experiment. But see what happened after. The Cypriot Minister of Finance went to Moscow because the Cypriots unfortunately believed that the Russians would give them money. He stayed 48 hours out of Russian Minister of Finance office. The Russian Minister of Finance never opened the door. I personally think during these 2 days, Mr. Putin and Mrs. Merkel had their phone calls and decided what they had to do with Cyprus matter. And then he went back and resigned and said, "The Russians will not give us money we made wrong." And then, on Sunday, 5 days after, they voted for the program, for a much worse program. But see what happened. Because of that experience, their society couldn't be divided as ours. They didn't like the program, but they couldn't accuse themselves for being traitors. So they said, "We don't like it, that's it, we have no alternative, let's finish it." What happened? After 3 years, Cyprus democracy exited the program, now is in the market with almost zero interest, and their economy is growing faster than in the past. They left the crisis behind. Why? The program works, but they followed the program because their society let them follow the program. If we had done the same thing in Greece, we had been exited until now. So, what we learned from this experience in our country? Yes, societies can really lose their logic, and yes, politicians can really be very coward. But when you have a big problem, you have to be brave enough to stand in front of the people and do your job. Most probably, you will lose the next elections. I have to be honest on that. As Nico said, Winston Churchill lost the elections after the Second World War. But you see, Nikos, nobody remembers Winston Churchill because he lost the elections. Everybody believes Winston Churchill because he won the war. This is what real politicians have to do. Thank you very much. So I'm ready to answer to any question. Could I have a glass of water? Okay. Next.
Well, we have a question there.
Okay.
Hello. So my question is very specific. First of all, I ask any question or a specific to your presentation or speech?
Don't ask me personal questions.
So my how you see the future of them. Because from a personal experience, I have a very, very small company here in UK, aside from my main job. But the reason I have it is because I don't mind too much if I lose it the day after, because I have my day job, let's say. So the government allows me, with the minimum effort, to keep this company alive for as long as I think. So my question is, because I really don't know what's the situation for really small companies in Greece, because I believe they are the future. They can use today's technology, they know today's technology, and technology for me is the only way to get out of the crisis, not only financially, but I mean basically structurally and socially. So my question is, what is the situation today for small companies? What does new democracy believe about small companies and how people should be allowed to form them in terms of bureaucracy, in terms of, I don't know, other processes, and eventually how you see them in the near future, let's say in 3-4 years. What is the plan about those?
Now, having a small company in Greece, I have one also. It's a bad experience. You see, in Greece we have this monument of the unknown soldier in the Syntagma Square. We should fix one of the unknown businessmen. This would be fantastic. The whole system will do whatever it takes to make your job more difficult. This is why I said before that Greece is a type of a communist country. Of course, I agree, small companies is the future, and all the program that Kyriakos Mitsotakis is trying to fix is a program that will let people do their small companies with tax relief, with no bureaucracy, with process in the banking system, in order to be able to establish this kind of companies. We want to see this happen. We want the people to change their mind, not to see their life as public servants, but see their life as businessmen. I will give you an example, which for me it shows exactly what the problem in Greece is. I don't know how many of you have seen a movie, a very old movie with Vasiliadou, who was the aunt from Chicago. It was a movie that they were throwing some stamps and they were picking people in order to marry with their daughters. And before of that, she was taking the identity card of the men they had picked to see if they would be good people to give them their daughter to be married. So in this film, 70 years ago, 60 years ago, they have a guy, they take the identity card, and Ms. Vasiliadou reads, public servant, and she says, public servant? That means that at that period, the society thought that being a public servant was not good. If you had the same movie, now, everybody would say, public servant, take them now. Why? Because everybody suddenly thought that the only good idea in our economy would be to enter to the public sector, having a salary with no risk, and have a good life. We have to change that. In order to change that, we have to give all the motives to the private economy to grow, and we have to explain to our people that this is the future.
Mr. Sofianos wants to rejoin. No, just to mention something about your question. Because as Ádωνις is, I'm a small entrepreneur. Ádωνις very, very correctly told you that small companies suffer because we pay almost 70% of our income. And it's not only this, also the difficulty of being an entrepreneur. The only good news today about small companies in Greece is done by the private sector. We as the Chamber of Commerce and Industry of Athens, we support small companies, we give them for free legal and legal support and support regarding their accounting department. I proposed to the president of the chamber recently to also give them psychological support. I started laughing and I told him, come with me on the second floor to see in what psychological situation those people are. Because 90% of them are sole entrepreneurs, but they are completely alone against a very hostile state and government. So only the private sector that volunteers to help small companies now does something. We also as a chamber have the incubator for small companies and startups. We have 50 of them. We support them for 2 years and give them a seat, EDRA, and also financial support and consulting and a lawyer and a secretary. So we have them to start. And we have a percentage of about 30% succeeding to develop as good companies, and also that they look outside the Greek market. So as Άδωνις very correctly said, we have to give to the small companies, when we will liberate the country and we will become a government, to give them incentives. I'll give you just one example and I'll finish here. If, as a government, I come and tell to you, whatever you export, you will pay 50% less income tax compared to what you would have paid if you sold your goods or services in the Greek market. This is something that will help the economy and will help the Greek companies to become more extrovert than introvert. Okay?
What's the definition of the small business in Greece,
In the Greek system, the definition is a little different than the European definition. In Europe, you have a small or middle size up until the number of 250 employees. There isn't actually a definite definition, as everything.
Before the other questions, can I please urge your questions to be as concise and to the point as possible?
My name is Mike Lipakis. I'm not very much involved in the politics or the finances. I'm an aerospace engineer. I also have to confess that I have supported your candidates last year practically, and more to add, I am one of the few in the room that I have supported in the very delicate years of the 2000, coming from London. Having said that, I would like to level a criticism, not so much to you, but to the party. Clearly, the most important thing is the financial, is probably the creation of a vision from your party. It's all right to accuse the populism of Syriza, that's the easy bit. That is also very obvious and they have been discredited. All this is very nice. But in order to win the fight, you just not want to say that the others are bad, but why you are good. And I have to say that I follow the financial program in Thessaloniki that your president discussed. He spoke about taxation, fine, privatization, fine. But for me, what I have not seen is the structure and the vision. How, when we actually do privatization, are we going to do privatization everywhere and everywhere? Okay, we can do anywhere and everywhere. But where the privatization will actually focus in producing impact, big impact. What is what we consider to be the important advantages of this country to make a real impact very fast? Because this will give the vision for the people, and they will then go away from the dream of protection of Syriza, and they will see future. Because at the end of the day, the most important thing is to make hearts and minds. It's not to say all the others are bad, but why okay. And I think this
I understood the question. First of all, I have to be very honest. The results of our internal elections in Great Britain was great, really great in Great Britain. Kyriakos had something like 45%, and I have something like 33%. Was 37 was amazing figures. As you understand, my candidates and Kyriakos were allies since day one because I really wanted him to be elected. And I will answer very, very shortly. I don't believe that you can explain to the people in the program what is your vision about your country. It's very difficult. And to be honest, as a politician, I can say to you that this question that the people don't vote for you but they reject the government is the wrong discussion. That's how people vote. I want to imagine Kyriakos Mitsotakis as, in a scale, Margaret Thatcher did to Great Britain, Kyriakos Mitsotakis will do in Greece. transform the country. And I believe he will do it. I believe he will do it. This is why I vote for him. And the vision is to have a country that we will be proud of. That when we will travel abroad, we will not go back by saying how many great things I've seen and why we don't have them in Greece, but going back and say, we have done it and we're doing even more. And I think Kyriakos will do that.
Yeah, I have a question regarding the referendum in Greece. Although it was an irresponsible decision to give this decision to the people, and the outcome was undesirable, would you agree, like for the future of Greece, that it was correct to ignore the popular vote?
First of all, in my point of view, this referendum was totally illegal and shouldn't have happened. Because in our constitution, you cannot have a referendum for fiscal target reasons. It's in our constitution. Why this referendum was let to be done, it's a big question. The populism was so strong at that point that nobody could stand against. So, at the beginning, I think this referendum should never have been happened. Since it had, it created a result. But you see the difference between Great Britain and Greece. The question was not so clear. When we were asking Mr. Tsipras, will you exit us from the Eurozone? He was always saying no. So, in my point of view, if we wanted to exit the Euro and we had to make a referendum about exiting the Euro, the questions would be clear. Do you want to exit the Euro? Whatever it means. And if this kind of referendum had happened, then we should follow it, because you have to follow people's voice. But the referendum of July 15 was a little travesty referendum. Was between.
I will ask you about an article, Dima, written by Pavlopoulos. For those of you who haven't read the article, basically he was developing a narrative that Mr. Tsipras wants to create a front with the far right in order to capitalize from this front through consecutive election rather than winning election, which seems unlikely right now. The problem is that Mr. Tsipras is a strategic genius to have been planning that all along, but almost all of the article made sense. Do you think that they genuinely have, and on the back of their head maybe, national currency plan, as a plan C now?
I read the article. I retweeted it, as I retweet many articles, but I don't agree with the article. First of all, I don't agree, even though the article was very well written and has a big story, because I personally think that if Mr. Tsipras had an agenda of drachma, it was much easier for him to do it on July 15 with 63% in the referendum than now. If he would try to do something like now, he would have a very bad end.
See now, then,
Then,
people agree. Now many people seem to agree.
no. Tsipras is clever enough to understand, and he understood it on July 15, that even the people that today they say, I want drachma, when they will experience drachma, they will enter his house. Because, it's very easy to speak about drachma, but spending euro. It's very easy. So, no, I don't agree with this article. And it had some conspiracy things inside about the present democracy and all these things, which I personally don't agree at all. It was interesting. I retweet many articles which I think are interesting to be read, but I don't agree.
Thank you. Given this opportunity, I would like to put some perspective into my question. My name is Michael Dean Alexis. You might not know me, and I don't expect you to. Now I'm a civil engineer, but 3 years ago, I was the president of the Hellenic Society of Imperial College London. At that time, Greece had the presidency of the European Council. The government of Ádωνη Samaras was leading that, and we decided to do a series of events to celebrate that opportunity, which only comes now once every about 15 years. So what's more logical for the last event than to invite a member of the executive? So we decided among many ministers, and we posted an invitation to Mr. Άδωνι Γεωργιάδη, who accepted graciously and immediately, and for which we were very much honored, because at that time, I have to say this as well, the Troika was going to be in Athens, and there was a lot of pressure on you personally as well.
I was making negotiations by phone before I entered the room.
But this, a lot of people said it was a huge crime that we did. We invited a member of an elected government. So today's event is a very lucky event, but that time, 2 weeks before the event, personal attacks started on us. Our families were bullied. In Greece, online, we ourselves were bullied. We received death threats even. Our views were distorted and broadcasted in the internet from the lowest scam troll of Syriza to the official communist newspapers, Avgi, Rizospastics, and whoever else. Even big websites who hosted some communists did that. So, after all of that, of the crime we did, in the event itself, we let these people be there. It's not that they came and we didn't know. We knew that these people would come there. We let them be there, and what happened was they would cough, they would shout, they wouldn't let us speak. It's what's happening today, exactly the opposite thing. They did not let the minister do his speech. They
I speak for 3 hours.
You spoke for 3 hours, questions, but not what we wanted to hear, not the written thing. You saved the event, and that's where we were most gracious, and we owe an apology because we had invited you and all of this happened. So the minister, Mr. Άδωνι, saved the event. He was there, he stood there, he didn't leave, which is something that they did not expect, but something that we expected. And after all of these attacks continued for some time, horrible attacks. And so I'd like to say 2 things on that. First is a statement, the second is my question.
Wait, can you please ask your question?
Yes. Yes. So the first thing is that you're a very lucky audience because you have not only a brave man sitting in front of you, but you actually, because you managed to hear him in peace and ask questions in peace and not with that high political temperature. The second thing is that what you did that day, what you do every day, what a lot of people praise you for is your incredible drive and stamina in front of all of these attacks. And what I lived for 3 weeks, you lived for a day condensed. So the question is, other than, I guess, love for your country, what is the main thought that keeps you being there and don't go back?
We believe in our ideas. We believe in the ideas of liberty, of free economy, of the Western values. And we will defend these ideas. We will defend these ideas. And we will not be afraid.
So I know we are in LSE and financial matters take center stage here, but just to broaden the discussion and talk a little bit about society. The thing that I've been here for 18 years, the thing that I enjoy here, other than the weather, obviously, is the fact that we don't smoke indoors anymore. We can't park our cars in front of disabled bays because we know they're going to get thrown away. We can't burn the buses on the street and get away with it. Do you think that finally, after all those decades, there's going to be changes in that regard once you come back to power? Because people talk about the brain drain and lots of young minds being abroad and all that, and it's not just the 70% of taxation. A great proportion of you, us, I'm convinced, are here and are suffering under the rain every day because of all those things. And because none of these things has changed, no matter who's in power or who has been in power so far.
This is a great question, and I have to be very honest. I think the most difficult reform we can do in our country. As a historian, I can reassure you that it's very old in Greece, very old. You see, in our country, following the rules is considered to be a type of tyranny. We don't want to follow the rules. This is the main reason the Romans prevailed Greece. So it's not about Syriza at that time. I have to be very honest. I will tell you another personal story to explain you the difference. When I was an MP in Laos Party in my beginnings, 2 years maybe MP, one good friend of mine, he's a businessman in New York, came to my office, August, furious, and said to me, Adonis, help me. I had put my car in Academia Street. I was going to Piraeus to take the boat, but I had to go to take some money from a guy. And the police came and took the plates. And I have all my stuff in the car, and my mother, which is 80 years old, and I have to go to my island. I want to take the plates back. So, naturally, I took my card and said, I make my signature and said, go to the police station and they will give you the plates back. Because that's what we were doing in Greece. He took the plates, he was very happy. So he invited me to New York after some months to give me a big fest. And the next day, we had to go to the church in which the Archbishop had invited us. So we went to the church, but we couldn't find a way to park. If I've been to New York, these places that they are empty for the fire extinguishers. So we are losing time, and I said to him, put your car here. If the police take the plates, yesterday in the fest, it was all the MPs from New York. You will ask for someone to take the plates back. So he said to me, are you nuts? They will kick me out of the United States. I said, yes, but in Athens you came to me to take the plates. He said, but this is Greece. In Greece it's okay. It's very difficult to change that, very difficult. I personally believe in following the rules. I admire the West about following the rules. I think the power of the West is following the rules. I wish we could make such a big reform as to persuade the people that at the end it's good for everybody to follow the rules. But I have to be realistic, it's not so easy. In the smoke, I will give you another example. I was Minister of Health. We tried to implement the law. You know, we have all the laws. We tried to implement the law about the anti-smoking. After 3 or 4 days that me and my vice minister at that time tried to implement the law, almost the whole cabinet had called me to stop implementing the law. So,
I think the one following the rules will never pay out in Greece. That's the issue.
yes, because when you have someone that will make you pay for that, you will reject him and you elect someone that will let you not follow the rules.
Thank you for being here for starters. And then building off of that last question, because you mentioned quite a few examples about how the Greeks kind of expected, I don't know, Russia or aliens or anyone to save us other than ourselves, right? Do you think that the Greek people are actually ready to face that reality after the past 3 years and say, we've tried 100 ways that were not the actual program. We now have to sit tight and just push through. Do you think, it actually being ready, not, the polls saying that Tsipras is not doing it anymore, people actually being ready to face reality?
Great question, thank you. Yes, I think our society now is much more mature than the past. I've read a poll, a very interesting poll. It had been showed in Sky and Kathmerini, with no political questions inside, but just questioning the reforms and if we have to do it. And the total majority was in favor of the reforms. I think now the people have understood that there's no other way and this is the right way to follow. And they just need the leadership to do that. I think the next Prime Minister Kyriakos will do that.
So firstly, I'm glad that you didn't leave the States to get some water. And further to that, thank you for being here today. And I would like to ask, so I couldn't agree more with you that Syriza has damaged the country a lot, not only these 3 years, but even before that. And suppose that tomorrow New Democracy was in charge in power, or take a more realistic scenario, by the end of 2017, New Democracy was in charge. How long it will take for Greece to recover to exit the markets again, to have positive numbers in growth? What's your personal?
The main reason I asked for elections now and I'm very strong in this position, is because I think that if we enter 2018 and we have elections at that point, it will be very difficult to reverse the economy fast. Because, see what will happen. On July 18, we either have an expand of the program, either a new program, either drachma. So if you reach the point of July 18 and your interest don't let you exit the markets, then a big discussion again about Grexit will start. This discussion will not let anybody make investment or reverse your economy. So you have to go faster before this black hole start to drive you again into the crisis. This is the reason I think we should have elections now. If the elections happen just 2 or 3 or 4 months before the end of the program, then the discussion about what will happen on July 18 will be stronger than the reforms. So it will be difficult. But if we had the elections now, I'm totally sure that until the end of this year, you could see great results.
Thank you for the speech. I would like to ask you, what do you think is going to happen with Ardeni Soros?
You see the story with Artemis Soros. I was in a TV channel. I was invited to talk with his vice president at that point, when he told me that they had gathered $600 billion for the Greek debt. I was president of the committee of the Hellenes abroad at that time. I thought that this couldn't be possible. I made him say in which bank they have this deposit. He named the Bank of Montreal. I said on TV on air that I will contact with the Canadian ambassador and ask him. I did, say myself, because the ambassador was laughing at the phone, and I was laughing also, but I had to do it. And of course, after that, I went to the court, and you know all the story. Mr. Soros is the ultimate example of Mr. Tsipras' role. They're not so different as you think. No, really. What Mr. Tsipras was saying in the Thessaloniki program, today I was hearing Mr. Zachariadis, I like him very much, in a channel that we want to know where Mr. Mitsotakis will find the money. And this guy was defending the Thessaloniki program, in which they were claiming that they would go and take 11 billion from the Europeans just because they wanted to do it, and the Europeans, they would just let them take the 11 billion and spend them as they wanted. And they were proposing that to the people, they were defending that to the people. How much distance you think this program has from the Apollo spaceships that would come with $3 trillion that Mr. Soros said at the end? It's not too far. It's the same idea. The first one, serious idea, it's a little bit more looking more rational. It's not. The other is a total fairy tale. What will happen? Unfortunately, because of the murder in Lamia and the death of this young woman, unfortunately, we had to have an incident like that to stop Mr. Soros. I think now the state is moving, and after some months, Mr. Soros will be in the court and maybe in jail because he has taken money from the people. But if we hadn't do all these things, I'm totally confident that Mr. Soros will be in the next parliament.
Now people in Greece have become poorer. There's no doubt about this. So what we need to help the everyday lives is to improve the situation in health, in social services, and in public order, this sort of thing. Now, you repeatedly say that the public sector, it does need reform, but doesn't need to change the numbers. So you're telling me in a way that if I need nurses, I cannot employ nurses according to the existing situation. So I have to take some clerical officers from any ministry, and at the age of 50 something, and train them into nurses. It can't happen. I think that you are trying to hide a little bit because the public sector and the reform that the public sector needs, they need freedom of movement. And I'm afraid you're trying to hide a little bit what's going to happen there. It's not very clear in people's minds.
First of all, it's not exactly as you say. The program let you hire nurses. I personally signed to hire 2,500 nurses and 2,000 doctors in 2014. The program doesn't stop you from hiring people you need, as if the total numbers of your public sector are okay. Now the total number is much less than the European average. So the problem is not if you need to hire nurses, if the program will let you hire nurses. The problem is now they don't hire nurses, but they hired guards and people to clean the hospitals and people to make other jobs in the hospitals, and not nurses, because Syriza spent these 4,000 jobs in other things in the hospitals. Something like that.
Why is that? Why would they do that? Because he could hire the nurses that,
Because nurses are people that should go from ASEP and had some criteria in order to be hired. These people are from their party. So they hired their political friends, and to be honest, I'm furious with the Troika that they let them do something like that. This is one of the problems of that period. The Troika closed their eyes many times in Syriza's act against a real modern state, for political reasons, obviously. So it's not the program that will prevent us. If you want to fix a state that is working, the lenders will not say you know. But you have to persuade them that what you are doing is in order to fix a state that is working and not a state for Rusfeti. So this is not the problem.
We go into coalition governments and you have to sit with Mr. Gheoργhiadis or whoever in the same room, on the same table for the good of this country.
First of all, I don't believe in coalition governments at all. I have experienced 2 coalition governments, and I have to say to you that our country cannot really be ruled by coalition government. And during this crisis period, we need a strong government. And coalition governments are not strong governments. They're governments that they are trying to keep balances. Greece needs someone that will not have in his head how to keep balance, but how to finish the job. So I hope that when elections will come, we will not have a coalition government. If we have a coalition government, we hope that this could be with a party that we could find common ways to the important things. But we would lose time. It would be bad in any case. With Syriza coalition government, it's something that many people say in Greece, that we should be with Syriza. I will say to you really why I don't believe in this kind of government. Not because I don't like Gheoργhiadis, no. He's a gentle guy. I like him, to be honest. No, really. Either Polakis, because he's so... Polakis, he has this... not vulgar. The vulgar is... The lies he says, and I don't like. But okay, I understand that some people can have other ideas than mine, and I'm okay with that. I love democracy and liberty. I have no problem with that. The reason I don't believe in a coalition with Syriza is because I'm sure that a government like that couldn't take any decision at all. The half government would like to stop Ellinikon project, and the other half government would like to go forward to Ellinikon project. What of the both would happen? Nobody knows. This is the reason I don't believe in this kind of government. I strongly believe that next elections will surprise you by the result. Believe me, I'm 10 years MP, I know about elections. It will surprise you.
In a good way, hopefully.
Since we were surprised in the referendum in the other way, in order to keep the balance, we have to find the difference.
Last question.
He gives the floor, I don't give the floor.
Last question.
Thank you. In the amphitheatres of London I've seen many politicians, usually just before the election, from ex-prime ministers, ministers, and all the rest. You're quite different. You stand your ground here, and we're having a very reasonable conversation. But equally, you could be a fenir in Greece and speak to, people across the spectrum, across the classes and the income or social spectrum. Why are there not more people like you in the Greek political system? You are almost one of a kind. A lot of us will like you, but why, if we focus on our side, the center right, or extreme, not extreme, but very right, whichever way of the spectrum you want to look at, why are there not more people in Greece that they have the ability to represent more than a very narrow strata of people?
Thank you for your good words. I'm not a real politician, I have to be very honest. I'm not the professional politician type. A professional politician type would ask an image maker how to talk, what to say, how to say it. I haven't an image maker in my life. I'll tell you a story to laugh, since it's the last question, so I can speak. Oh, fluent. I was in Harvard, and I met one of Obama's communicators, who's the teacher there. And he had a lesson about how a politician should be when he's with people. And then when I was in his office, my assistant showed him from the internet, from the YouTube, all the things I was doing in the hospitals when I was entering, and all the people from the left were shouting, and I was going and talk to them, and they were throwing things. And when he saw the video, he told me, "And you are elected?" I said, "Yes." So I'm not a professional type of politician. And I have to tell you an advice. It's very nice entering politics. Democracy is a very good experience. I would really say to you, experience it when you have the chance. The ideas we have in Greece that why to enter in politics, nothing can be changed, and all of them are the same, they're all lies. I remember myself, when I was going into the parliament, I was a Laos MP at that point, and I was the main speaker into the Diamantopoulou law, which was a law that I had been worked more than a year with Ms. Diamantopoulou very hard in order to be happen. And I was so proud that I had participated to this law. And was the day that I became friend with Kyriakos. Because at that day, New Democracy at the beginning was neutral in the law for political reasons. And Kyriakos stood up and said, "I will vote for the law." And that changed the whole New Democracy opinion at that day. And this was important for Greece. He made something important happen. I was participating in something important. So you can change things if you are there. You cannot change anything if you are not there. So I say to you, enter politics. But okay, any politician has a style. I have my own style. I cannot say to someone to copy my style, as I couldn't copy anybody else's style. It's not only good, the style I have to say to you. I have damaged myself a lot of times. I have let myself to easy criticism from my opponents with my mistakes many times. Many times I've said after that I should be more careful, and I wasn't. But from the other hand, I don't want to lose my authenticity. I want to be able to say what I really believe. I don't know if this is good or bad at the end, but to my political career, in which I hadn't designed it at all, it's not bad until now. I'm 45 years old. I'm 10 years MP, 2-time minister, and vice president of New Democracy. Okay, I will not be Alexander the Great, so it's okay.
Thank you very much.
So I think enter politics, be yourself, defend your ideas, and at the end something good will happen. Thank you very much for the invitation.